can the blockchain do in the future? How else can that technology help out in things like making elections more secure? Where's this technology going to go? You know, and I guess that's the one thing that I'm really intrigued by, you know, and I know that like when people talk cryptocurrency, you know, or when people talk Bitcoin, most people don't understand the difference between cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. You know, a lot of people just they think it's the same, you know,
Mhm.
and I understand that Bitcoin is kind of like the beginning of it all,
Mhm.
you know, and but I guess one of my questions that I have for you that I was curious about is, are there companies that are looking into that blockchain technology and using it for different things?
Yeah. I mean, there's billions of dollars from companies, from venture capital firms, from blockchain projects that are starting up all over the place. I mean, there's, you know, if you go on Coin Market Cap, which is the site where you can look up most of the cryptocurrencies that are out there, there's like 20,000 something cryptocurrencies in the world. 99.999% of them are just a waste of time. It's white noise. But there are some projects out there that are trying to accomplish something novel. Like you brought up elections. There's a project out there, and I don't advocate for any altcoins or anything like that. I'm a kind of a Bitcoin purist.
Right,
There's
right.
a term called Bitcoin maximalism where like it's like Bitcoin only, and they don't really pay much attention. They're kind of really like mean and kind of they have a grudge towards altcoins. I don't have a grudge towards altcoins. There's Bitcoin and there's altcoins, which is everything else. Every all the 19,000 other coins are considered altcoins. But I think the way I look at it, like you said, is what are the future applications of the blockchain? Bitcoin is the most distributed. It's the most secure. Like if you're going to build the world's financial system on a network, it needs to be really, really, really secure. Bitcoin's the most secure computing network in the history of the world. Like you cannot hack it. Like theoretically,
Right.
there's a way to do it. If you can take over people, it's called a 51% attack. So you need to take over 51% or more of
51
the
of the mining companies.
yeah, and so, but it's more than that. You really, in order to change blocks in the blockchain or to change future blocks, you would need something like 80 to 90% of it. So we call it a 51% attack just to help kind of illustrate the example of it. By all intents and purposes, to get your hands on enough microchips, which there's already circuit shortages as we speak right now. But if you were to get your hands on enough computing power, it would just be impossible. You can't do
Yeah,
it. Like even
right.
if you took all the chips in the world that were available, you wouldn't have enough computing power. So even if China and US and Russia, who are all enemies, teamed up together, they couldn't do it.
To take down
They couldn't do it.
Bitcoin.
It's just too big and too distributed. So that's to say that if you want sound money, if you want a really good system for money, Bitcoin's the way you go. So in a context where we're talking about inflation and stuff like that, we're in a world where every time you turn on the news, inflation this, inflation that. If you want sound money, Bitcoin's where you really need to focus. But to your point, there's interesting things, right? Like what does an immutable ledger bring to the table? What does a transparent ledger bring to the table? And like I said, or like you said, voting is kind of like one of those prime things that the blockchain might have a really good solution for. I mean, imagine how cool it would be. People don't trust the election systems right now. When Trump won, Hillary said it was rigged. When Trump wins, or when Biden
Biden
wins,
wins.
then the right says that it's rigged. So both sides are going to say it's rigged, and they're probably right. Like both sides are probably right. I think everybody's cheating. Like if you're running for president and you're not cheating, like you're probably not trying hard enough. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's probably the way it works. But think of it. Like think if you could cast your vote. Like I cast my vote, and all I can see if I scan the little QR code is to see if it was received. It doesn't show, like I can't see a receipt of who I voted for or when I
Right.
voted or any of that kind of stuff. Imagine if there's a ledger, like imagine a giant Excel spreadsheet that
Hmm.
has track of everything you voted for, everybody you voted for,
But
but
nobody can touch it.
nobody can touch it, nobody can change it, and nobody knows that your vote was from you. You would be encrypted, so you would
Yeah.
know that that's your identifier. And so you couldn't, one of your, your employers couldn't go and look and see who you voted for and then
Hmm.
fire you because they don't like who you voted for.
Right.
It would be your secret identity. but it's transparent. You can go on the ledger and be like, okay, my vote counted for these candidates or these propositions and that sort of thing. That would be very transparent. It'd be immutable. It'd be unchangeable. And so, yes. Now the problem is these projects like Civic, which I think that these projects need to exist. They need to be developed. I look at them like research and development, you kind of like the research and development arm for Bitcoin. Because if they develop a ledger, if they develop the functionality for a really good blockchain-based voting system, the Bitcoin developers can build that on top of Bitcoin. They can make a Civic layer to the Bitcoin ledger, and then you're harnessing Bitcoin's decentralization, Bitcoin's security. Because if you have a really small blockchain, it's really easy to hack. If you don't have a lot of computing power behind it, me and you could start a blockchain tonight. Bitcoin's open source software. We could start Molina Coin tonight, and it could have all the properties of the code of the Bitcoin network, because again, it's open source software. It's out there for everybody to do. That's why there's 20,000 cryptocurrencies out there. They just copy the source code and then they say, oh, we've got a new coin. The problem is they don't have the network effect. Network effect is something really, really important. And let me try to illustrate that as quickly as possible. Imagine we had a telephone network, but only you had a phone. Nobody else had a phone. How valuable is that telecommunications network? It has zero value because you have no connections, right? You have the technology, cool, the technology works, but it has no value to me. Now, imagine your mom gets a phone. Well, now it has some value to you because you can maintain familial connections, right? Like if I want to get in touch with my mom, it has some value. Now imagine one more person gets added, say a business associate. Cool. Now there's a family component. Now there's a business component. It's every node I add to this network, it becomes more and more valuable.
Yeah.
Small blockchains don't have a very big network effect. They don't have a lot of people interacting with it, and therefore it's not very valuable. Bitcoin, it's huge, has hundreds of millions of people on that. And so it not only decentralizes it, but it makes the network more and more valuable because there's more people interacting with it. There's more connections. Like, do I want to, interact with this person for a business transaction? Do I want to interact with this, do I want to interact with my kids? Like I tip my kids with Bitcoin. So my kids they have Bitcoin wallets, so I can interact with my kids on Bitcoin, and all sorts of things. So there's some really interesting components. Yes, there's blockchain projects out there doing things. Like there's things, I don't know if you're probably familiar with Ethereum to some degree. Ethereum's kind of like if Bitcoin's Apple Pay, Ethereum's like the app store. Like if you want a decentralized application, those things are getting built on top of Ethereum. Unfortunately, the consensus mechanisms, the things that validate transactions on other blockchains, they have some inherent weaknesses that Bitcoin doesn't have. And so again, I'm not anti-Ethereum. I'm not anti-altcoin. I just see them as kind of like a means to an end. Like when those other blockchains develop something that's kind of workable, then it'll probably get added to Bitcoin. So sorry, I always kind of bring everything back to Bitcoin, but this is a really, really big kind of topic right now. As you're, in the news, we're hearing about exchanges collapsing, coins collapsing, and kind of, there's a lot of scam projects out there. So I think it's really important for people to understand that there are financial risks associated with investing in crypto, things that are outside of Bitcoin, because